A world economy already contending with raging inflation, stock market turmoil, and a grueling war is facing yet another threat: the unraveling of a massive housing boom. In today's video, we'll be sharing with you the latest view on housing crash. So make sure you stay tuned till the end. As central banks around the globe rapidly increase interest rates, soaring borrowing costs mean people who were already stretching to buy property are finally reaching their limits. The effects are being seen in countries such as Canada, the US, and New Zealand, where once hot residential real estate markets have suddenly turned cold. There's no doubt that these hikes are having an impact on housing markets. In Toronto, for example, home sales have dropped by more than 30% since last spring, while prices have begun to flatten out after years of rapid growth. So is this the beginning of a housing crash? It's possible, but it's still too early to say for sure. There are a number of factors that could either cause a sharp decline in prices or cushion the blow, including the strength of the economy and population growth. A new report from Reality Track shows that the amount of cash being used to buy homes is on the rise. In the first quarter of 2016, all cash sales accounted for 30.8% of the total home sales, up from 28.1% in the fourth quarter of 2015 and 29.5% in the first quarter of 2015. This marks the non-consecutive quarter where all cash sales have made up more than 30% of the total home sales. The report also found that cash buyers are paying an average discount of 15.6% below the estimated market value for their purchases. That's down from an average discount of 18.4% in the fourth quarter of 2015 and 20.5% in the first quarter of 2015. Reality Track Vice President Darren Bloomquist said that the rise in all cash sales is due to a number of factors, including investor interest, tight credit conditions, and the fact that many buyers simply can't afford to put down a large down payment. All cash purchases peaked at 46% of the total sales in early 2011, but have been declining ever since, as distressed properties made up a larger share of the transactions then, and have now largely been cleared from the market. Bloomquist said, "The recent uptick in all cash purchases appears to be more about strong demand from cash buyers rather than weak supply. If you're thinking about buying a home with cash, be sure to do your research and work with a qualified real estate agent to get the best deal possible." Homeowners and real estate investors are always wondering if there will be a housing crash. While its effects on the wider economy could be sharp, it's difficult to predict when or if a crash will occur. The Bank of England has stated that the value of a home amounts for a large proportion of the average individual's asset value, giving them the confidence to spend in the economy. A crash wipes out that confidence and can push some into negative equity when the value of their home becomes lower than the price they paid for it. This feeds into consumption patterns, which can see low demand bleed through the economy, hurting equities and causing implications for macroeconomic policy. While there are many factors that contribute to a housing crash, it is difficult to say if or when one will occur. Nonetheless, it's important to be aware of the potential risks involved in investing in the housing market. The most important factor in whether or not there will be a housing crash is the availability of credit. When lenders are willing to give out loans, it allows buyers to purchase homes they may not have been able to afford otherwise. This increases demand and prices for properties, which can lead to an unsustainable bubble. If lenders become stricter with their lending criteria, it can cause a sharp decrease in demand, leading to prices crashing. Another significant factor is consumer confidence. If people believe that prices will continue to rise, they're more likely to buy a property, even if they don't necessarily need one. However, if confidence starts to waver, buyers become more cautious, and this can lead to a slowdown in the market. There are a number of other factors that can contribute to a housing crash, such as job losses, an increase in interest rates, or a change in government policy. However, these are all difficult to predict, and so it's hard to say definitely whether or not a crash will occur. Nonetheless, it's important to be aware of the potential risks involved in investing in the housing market. Will there be a housing crash? It's a question on many people's minds, given the recent slowdown in house price growth. The current consensus appears to be that there is unlikely to be a housing crash. akin to that which engulfed the market in 2007 and 2008, partly as a result of the lessons learned then and other changing factors. But there's also broad agreement that recent years of the mammoth growth have expired. According to a Morgan Stanley research paper, house prices growth will slow but won't turn negative. The broker mainly attributed this to low levels of supply in the market. The unifying feature is that there's simply not enough supply. James Egan, co-head of the U.S. Securitized Product Research at Morgan Stanley, said in the report. He added that this was a structural issue driven by demographics, an aging population and millennial getting married, having children later, and land constraints. The latter has been exacerbated by an increase in regulation since the financial crisis. It's a view shared by other market participants. In December last year, Deutsche Bank released research which stated that although affordability had become stretched, we do not think prices will crash as they did during the GFC because household balance sheets are much stronger now related to then. The paper continued, in our view, this will help to support prices and limit downside risk in a downturn. There's always the potential for a housing crash, as there are with any asset. However, there are several reasons why we believe the risk of a housing crash in the near term is relatively low. First, interest rates are still relatively low by historical standards, which makes borrowing for a home relatively affordable. Second, rental occupancy rates are at all-time high, which suggests there is strong demand for housing. Third, residential supply is at all-time low, which indicates that there is limited new construction taking place. This lack of new supply should help to keep prices firm. Fourth, many households have been able to build up substantial equity in their homes over the past 5 years thanks to the rising prices. This equity can act as a buffer against price declines. Overall, we believe the risk of a housing crash in the near term is relatively low. However, it's always important to be aware of the risks and to monitor the market closely. There's no definitive answer to whether or not there will be a housing crash in the near future. However, some experts believe that rising mortgage rates could dampen demand and exacerbate affordability gaps, which could lead to slower price growth or even prices decrease in some areas. Low supply is also a factor that could contribute to a housing crash, as home builders are not ramping up production as much as they have in the past. Ultimately, it's difficult to predict the future of the housing market, but it's important to be aware of the potential risks involved in buying a home. As China's real estate crisis deepens, more and more home buyers are choosing to stop making mortgage payments. This mortgage boycott could spell disaster for the country's housing market, which is already teetering on the edge of collapse, with an estimated of 2 trillion yuan, that is $296 billion worth of mortgage outstanding at stalled or unfinished developments. A full-blown housing crash would have far-reaching consequences for the Chinese economy. It could also trigger a wave of defaults that would ripple through the global financial system. For now, it remains to be seen whether the mortgage boycott will be enough to cause a housing crash. But one thing is certain, the pressure is mounting on the China's beleaguered homebuyers, and they're running out of patience. It's no secret that China's economy has been struggling as of late. Amidst the country's zero-COVID cases strategy, analysts expect property sales to have dropped a staggering 25% from the January to June. This has left numerous developments across China stalled, as property developers have simply ran out of the capital to finish the construction. In desperation, many developers are now resorting to selling homes by whatever means possible, even accepting down payments in wheat, garlic, watermelons, and peaches to cater to farmers. With the market in such a state of flux, it begs the question, is a housing crash inevitable? As concerns mount over the health of the Chinese economy, there's growing speculation that a housing market crash could be on the horizon. This would have far-reaching implications not just for China, but for the global economy as well. The roots of the problem can be traced back to the Evergrande Group, one of China's largest developers. Evergrande has been embroiled in a series of financial and legal troubles in recent months, leading many to question the stability of the company and the broader housing market. These concerns have already begun to translate into action. with investors pulling money out of the Chinese property stocks and developers scrambling to shore up their finances. If these trends continue, it could lead to a sharp decline in prices and a wave of defaults, putting immense strain on the banking system and the economy as a whole. Such a scenario would have major consequences for China and the world. Given the size of the Chinese economy, a housing market crash could trigger a global recession. And with so much wealth tied up in poverty, it could also lead to widespread social unrest. Only time will tell. In the meantime, we'll be keeping a close eye on the China's ever-changing real estate landscape. So while a return to the days of the rapid price growth may be off the cards, it seems that concerns of an all-out market crash are unfounded for now at least. But as ever, only time will tell. So that's all for today's video. If you liked the video, then give it thumbs up, and if you want to watch more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so that you will always be notified.